Hi, everybody. My name is Cassie Ferri, and I'm the January to June 2022 Wildlife Policy Intern for the Wildlife Society. I'm going to do a quick overview of who I am, the work I've done for the Wildlife Society, and what I'm going to do next. I really hope you guys enjoy because I had a fantastic time in this internship, and I'm really sad that it's coming to an end. All right, a little about me. I was born and raised in Springfield, Mass. So there wasn't much wilderness, but I always had a love for wildlife. You could always find me with a book about animals in my hand, and I was absolutely obsessed with David Attenborough documentaries. And I followed that passion to college, where I got my bachelor's in wildlife ecology with the concentration in wildlife science and management from the University of Maine. Quite recently, I got my degree earlier this month, which is very, very exciting. And I'm really happy that I was able to end my college career on such a high note, getting this internship. So during my time at UMaine, I was a officer of the Wildlife Society. So the winter of my freshman year, I was the secretary, and then the following year I moved on to be the vice president, and then finally I got to be president of our chapter, which was an amazing experience. I loved connecting with my peers and leading them in, advocacy and professional development for wildlife. And I was also in my time a wildlife ecology mentor to classmen. So I would field questions about the wildlife profession to younger students and incoming students. And I loved kind of, encouraging them to take this path in life, even though it can be a little daunting, provided them with guidance. And another thing that I did during my undergrad was I published a paper on gull behavior in the journal Undergraduate Research. And I also worked with the Salt Marsh Habitat and Avian Research Program for a couple of years, which you can see me in the top right picture there, holding a juvenile salt marsh sparrow. That was an awesome time. I loved that habitat. I loved the birds because I am an avid birder. I recently went to Peru to bird. I went to Ohio to bird, and it's something that will always be a passion of mine. All right, so enough about me. I'll just briefly go over my internship responsibilities that I've performed for the past 6 months for the Wildlife Society. So first, daily, I track relevant policy news and brief the government affairs program team. So basically, I look over the federal register, look through the daily news, and just pick out anything that might be of relevancy or interest to our team to write articles about or focus attention on. And so I do that daily. I also write documents. So I write articles for the website that are policy based. I help draft the Conservation Affairs Network newsletter to let Conservation Affairs Network members know what's going on in headquarters and federally. I also help with some Conservation Affairs Network resources, and I also will draft and update policy briefs. Thing I do is I update the TWS web content, so that's fact sheets, policy briefs. I update the policy library, the web pages, and I also make campaigns on one-click politics for our different priorities. So another responsibility is that weekly I attend coalition and working group meetings. So I attend the USGS coalition meetings where we work towards advocating for robust funding for the US Geological Survey and its programs that support wildlife and wildlife professionals. I attend the Cooperative Alliance for Refuge Enhancement meeting that advocates for robust funding for the Refuge Association. I attend the Migratory Bird Treaty Act working group and the Recovering America's Wildlife Act working group, which has been very exciting in the past few months because we've had a lot of progress on that, and I am confident that it'll get a vote soon, fingers crossed. And lastly, I facilitate TWS and coalition engagement in the federal appropriations process and effort to pass Recovering America's Wildlife Act. So I will schedule coalition meetings with congressional staff to get the word out about what we're advocating for and why it's important. And I also track and submit member request forms for appropriations. So that is how we get our TWS's asks for appropriations and funding for different agencies and their programs to the congressional staff. That is how we communicate with them. Some internship highlights from my time here is that I've written 50 policy articles for the Wildlife Society website. I think it's a little over 50 now because I still have a couple weeks left. But I've written quite a few articles for there, tracking legislation, updating members on outreach and testimony we've sent out, and updating them on Endangered Species Act happenings and all sorts of federal affairs and TWS affairs. I've also submitted 27 appropriations request forms, 16 to senators and 11 to representatives. So like I said before, appropriations request forms are how the Wildlife Society Government Affairs Program communicates with congressional offices what our wishes are for funding levels for each fiscal year. So I've submitted funding requests for state and tribal wildlife grants, cooperative research units from the USGS, climate adaptation science centers, and the refuge system. So all sorts of programs that benefit wildlife and wildlife professionals. We communicate the robust funding that we wish to have for those programs to congressional offices. I organize USGS coalition and CARE meetings with House and Senate appropriators, performing generally the same actions as the appropriations request forms would, but this time in a more personal setting where we get to talk face to face with those staffers. I update policy briefs and fact sheets. So I updated the State and Tribal Wildlife Grant fact sheet, the Land and Water Conservation Fund fact sheet, Species at Risk Act fact sheet for Canadian policy, and the fact sheet about feral swine. I sent out 6 Conservation Affairs Network newsletters to members of the CAN. So I helped Kelly out with that. And lastly, I worked on a collaborative DEI and Women and Wildlife survey project with Valerie. So the Women and Wildlife Working Group hosted a webinar on their upcoming book, and Valerie and I drafted pre and post polls to gauge members' understanding of DEI, what they value, and get a better understanding of how TWS can advance our DEI vision. So I'm going to go over a few personal goals that I had at the beginning of the internship that I definitely improved on throughout my time here. So my first one was to improve my knowledge of government processes and policies. So I came into this internship with a big passion for wildlife and wildlife policy, but I didn't really have any working experience with that other than a course I had taken, but I knew it was something I wanted to work in. So throughout my time here, I've become really familiar with government processes, advocacy, and just navigating the policy sphere. I feel really knowledgeable about things that I had no idea about at the beginning of the internship, and that's really exciting. So I feel pretty confident and eager to enter graduate school and the wildlife policy and advocacy workforce. So I plan on sticking around in this sphere for quite a while. The second goal I had was that I wanted to educate others on wildlife conservation and policies and get them engaged. So education and advocacy work is another thing that I wanted to do. And I did this by writing articles, engaging with CAN activities, talking to congressional staff, and all of that helped teach me how to teach others about policy and get them to care about it. Not a lot of people care about policy because they might think it's not as luxurious or cool as field work, but I really like getting people excited and showing them that this is a way you can make a difference is by getting involved, calling your representatives, getting boots on the ground, and really advocating for good wildlife policy, strong wildlife policy. So that's another goal that I accomplished. And a third goal was becoming familiar with navigating and using resources available to me. So news websites, government documents, communication methods. I really just wanted to have a good base of, if I'm ever confused about anything in the professional world, what resources do I have and how do I use them? And so throughout this internship, I learned how to navigate and interpret government documents on the Federal Register, and I learned how to effectively research and track policies, because that was a big component of my role here as the TWS intern. So I'm now pretty confident in using all the resources at my disposal, and I really learned a lot about working in an online space. Communicating with staff members when you're not physically there can be hard, but I found that practicing made it better, and now I'm pretty good at working in an online space. So after this internship, what's next for me? So I am pursuing an MS in environmental science and policy with a focus area in international environmental policy at Johns Hopkins University this fall. I'm really, really excited to start because I want to jumpstart the next phase of my career and get more qualifications to be able to do the work I want to do, which is working as a policy analyst or a government affairs manager, or working in advocacy work. So that's the ultimate goal, and I hope to accomplish that with the education and experiences I gain at Johns Hopkins. I will also, of course, be an active TWS member. I've been an active TWS member since I was first in college freshman year, and it's really shaped me into the wildlife professional that I am today, and I plan on being active wherever I go. I'm going to be a member of their chapter and help other people learn about policy and do a lot of policy advocacy myself for the chapters. Lastly, I just want to say a big, big, big thank you to my supervisors, Caroline, Keith, and Kelly. You guys were an awesome team to work with. It was a great work environment. I always felt comfortable asking questions or talking about my life, or I loved hearing you guys talk about your life. And yeah, it just made for a very, very good work atmosphere, and you taught me a lot throughout my time here. So I just want to extend a big thank you. And of course, thank you to the rest of the TWS staff, Dana for finalizing all my articles, Valerie for working with me on the project, and everybody else. You guys were such a welcoming just community, and it was awesome. So hopefully everybody has questions for me at the Q&A, and I will see you then. Bye.